You stole from me, you forged my mother's name. The words echoed across the cracked hardwood, louder than the thunder outside. A man's voice clenched with anger. I did what I had to save my family. Funny because you destroyed it instead, she shot back, her hand gripping a heavy folder. Another voice, cold, measured. Walk away now before everyone hears this. Do you even hear yourself? She whispered, face pale under the chandelier's glare. Feet scraped against aged floorboards, paper slammed onto a table. The county's here, the press is outside, and I have every receipt. You built lies with my house, not anymore. A hush pressed in, breaths held. He started forward, jaw tight. You won't get away with this. She didn't flinch. Watch me. How did it ever come to this? To understand, you'd have to go back to before any of it started, when the story was nothing but rain, cracked glass, and a woman whose account held just $38.12. Emma's knuckles blanched white on the steering wheel as another burst of sleet battered the windshield. The digital display flashed $38.12 in the bottom left corner, a red warning she couldn't ignore. Outside Windsor Township, Iowa, shadows of bare trees flickered past the headlights. In the back seat, two worn duffels slumped next to her daughter's raincoat, the yellow faded at the collar. Beside her, her daughter Miranda tugged her hood lower, fogging the passenger window with her anxious breaths. Mom, will there be any heat in this place? Or, Miranda's voice shivered along with the car. Emma forced a chuckle, masking the tightness in her chest. Might take some improvising, but I promise, if there's a working fireplace, we'll make s'mores by morning. Miranda's lips turned upward, almost believing. And the roof's not, you know, about to fall in. With our luck, probably just leaks. We'll survive, kiddo. She remembered Miranda as a toddler, blue mittens dragging along the hallway, chasing warm pockets of sun. Now 19, too thin from stress, eyes older than her years, she turned back to the window, as if looking for a light that didn't exist. Emma tried not to stare at her phone again, but the last notification sat at the top of the screen, a final knife twist. Per prenuptial, only family cabin is yours. Should have watched the fine print. Regards, Brian. Her ex-husband's name, Brian Whittaker, still soured her mouth. Finance kingpin. Real estate mogul, Windsor's golden son, so the local press said. But to Emma, just the man who'd married her in college, made promises about forever, then handed her divorce papers the moment his business tanked. Brian's new wife, Heather, always in sunglasses, lips perfectly lined, had called at noon. You should be grateful, honey. We let you keep that old farmhouse. My decorator says it's vintage chic, if you're into rats and dust. Emma bit her tongue, hands pressed flat on the dash. She'd overheard their mocking laughter echoing through the lobby of Weldon and Stern, cold against the marble floors. In the lawyer's parking lot, Heather had paused, flipping her scarf. Are you even sure you want to go inside? I wouldn't if I were you. Brian's cousin Tyler, faux apologetic, had remarked, It's not personal, Emma, just business. The other parcels, clean title. Yours is, well, you'll see. Emma stared across at the house they'd all dismissed, gray clapboards sagging under a chipped green roof, a fireplace taller than any window, wreathed in rusted gutters and wind-blown debris. Years of rain had peeled the number off the mailbox. One shutter clung at a desperate angle. Such generosity, she'd thought, as Brian announced that the rest of Whittaker land, fields, barns, even the private lane, was permanently transferred into his development company. Emma got precisely the junk end, as Tyler said, arms crossed, laughter bubbling behind his teeth. But as Miranda wrestled with her umbrella, Emma noticed something strange. The legal packet bulged in a corner, a small envelope buried deep inside. Her thumb grazed over it, and she realized it was an original deed. From 1947, the blue ink just faded enough. Scrawled next to the farmhouse boundaries was a coded note. Vault, master bathroom upstairs, mirror panel. Emma inhaled sharply. She carefully tucked the envelope into her coat, a spark flickering in her gut. Maybe it was still nothing, just an error or another cruel joke, but if there was even a chance. If you've ever watched someone strip away everything you built and thought, "No, not this time," then keep listening, because Emma was done letting her story be written by someone else. The wind snapped her umbrella as soon as she stepped from the car, stinging her cheeks with cold Iowa rain. Miranda wrinkled her nose, squinting up at the farmhouse's broken gable. She fumbled with the skeleton key, finally managing to pop the stubborn lock. The door groaned on its hinges, letting out the sour breath of 30 years kept shut. Inside was worse than Emma dared imagine, blackened wallpaper peeled in strips, plaster falling in chunks from the ceiling. Mouse droppings traced the corners by the baseboards. Miranda's boots stuck to a spill of honey-colored varnish. "Are we sure we're not trespassing?" Miranda asked, voice barely above a whisper. Emma forced a weak smile. "No one's wanted this place in decades. It's all ours, kid." A heap of damp cardboard blocked the hallway, marked with brittle labels. Whitaker 1982, Christmas china, Dad's letters, attic, do not move. The words "do not move" made Emma pause. She ducked beneath a crooked chandelier, brushing away cobwebs with a nervous hand. "Mom, look at this, it's freezing." Miranda's voice echoed from the living room, where a mammoth stone fireplace squatted against the wall. Her daughter traced a finger over the cracked mortar. Emma joined her, kneeling to brush aside the ash. There, behind the faintest outline of bricks, was a hairline seam like a door waiting to be opened. Emma felt the envelope burn against her chest. Master bathroom upstairs, mirror panel. She and Miranda exchanged a glance, both knowing the real search had just begun. If courage only comes when your back's against the wall, Emma was learning fast. The staircase protested under their weight as they climbed, each step a shiver, each footfall met with a chorus of moans from the old wood. Emma fumbled along the faded wallpaper, her palm landing on a gouge in the plaster shaped like a crescent moon. It sent her memory spinning. Brian, much younger, running this very hallway with her during their engagement, promising, "We'll fix it up someday." Now Emma picked her way into the upstairs hall as Miranda followed, flashlight dancing. They found the master bath at the end. Bare pipes caught the light, mirror clouded by decades of grime. Miranda frowned, brushing at the edge. "There's something behind here." Emma hesitated, but feeling the edges, discovered a panel barely affixed behind the glass. She gripped it and gave a tug. The panel popped loose. A shower of dust made both women cough. Hidden behind was a sheet of metal, ancient and rusted, a safe or vault barely wider than a suitcase. Emma's heart hammered. "We need something to pry it open." Downstairs, she searched an abandoned toolbox, hand closing on a rusty screwdriver. Miranda, nervy but determined, returned with her phone and flashlight. Together, they wrenched at the old vault, metal screaming against metal. Emma's hands slipped, scraping her knuckles, but finally the door broke loose with a clang. A stale, metallic air rushed out. Inside waited something that made her blink twice, a mahogany jewelry box scrawled with faded initials, heavy as brick. Miranda held her breath. Emma drew the box gingerly into the light. Her fingers brushed aside velvet and tissue paper, revealing the glimmer of emerald necklaces, ruby rings, pearls twined in rows, more opulence than she'd ever seen outside of a catalog. Tucked beneath was a sheath of yellowed documents, deeds, receipts, and astonishingly, family photographs from 4 generations. Miranda exhaled. "Mom, is this real?" Emma hesitated, thumb trembling over an emerald brooch. Clipped to the inside lid, a faded postcard read, "For whoever needs it most, this house keeps its promises if you believe." She almost dropped it. This changed everything. "Miranda, we need to get this appraised, and there's more deeds, maps. Brian never mentioned these property lines." Emma gathered the jewelry, and Miranda flipped through legal papers, her eyes wide. Whatever they'd found, it was the first step beyond survival. Emma bulldozed her doubts and dialed the only local attorney she still trusted. Her voice, when it came, was scratchy with disbelief. Grace, it's Emma. I know we haven't talked in years, but do you have 20 minutes? Grace Carmichael's voice came brisk but welcoming. Emma, it's late, but for you always. As Emma loaded the jewelry and documents into a battered grocery bag, Miranda hovered behind. Are you sure we can trust her? Emma shrugged, biting her lip. She's the only one Brian S. never bought. Rain battered the farmhouse roof as they stepped out, and thunder chased them down the lane. Emma's mind spun. Who had hidden those jewels? What would Brian do if he learned? Could this be the answer or just another trick? She barely breathed as they drove toward town, icy dread and fierce hope wrestling in her chest. The attorney's office sat 2 blocks from the courthouse, tucked behind an old feed store. The sign flickered as Emma and Miranda ducked inside, hair damp, cheeks stung red by wind. Grace waited by the counter, reading glasses perched precariously. What in the world? Grace trailed off, staring at Emma's armload. Emma unloaded the box and documents onto the desk. I need your help. It's complicated, but I think my ex and his family lied about everything. Miranda chimed in, words tumbling out. We found a deed. Mom's name is actually on all this land, not just the house and theirs, jewelry, real stuff, worth we don't even know. Grace examined the gems, holding a strand of pearls to the desk lamp. This is old money, Emma, 4 generations if these engravings are right, and this, she flicked through the deeds, shows your property line is 5 times what they claimed. Emma's pulse raced. Brian said everything else went to him legally. Grace frowned, flipping to a notarized page. Not if this is genuine, and this signature, your grandmother's, not forged. Look at the dates. Miranda studied the blue ink. Why would they hide this? Emma's throat tightened. Because Brian's company is teetering. I read online their holdings are leveraged to the teeth. If I had the original titles, if this land was worth something, he'd lose the leverage. Grace nodded. This jewelry alone may be $2 million, and the property title, that's a civil suit waiting to happen. Emma's hands trembled. I need to prove it, Grace, and soon. The county wants to demolish the house in 30 days unless I appear to restore it. Grace leaned in, voice low. If this is real, Brian's entire empire is built on fraud, but you'll need all your nerve. He won't go down without a fight. Emma glanced at Miranda, who was biting her thumb. A new problem crashed into focus. Time was running out, and anything less than the truth would leave them with nothing. Miranda massaged her temples, eyes rimmed red. What are we supposed to do now? Grace motioned to a back room. Let's copy everything. We need proof fast. If Brian finds out before we file, he could bury you in court. Emma's stomach twisted, but for the first time that twist felt like power. As she copied each document, the sense that she stood at the edge of reclamation, no longer just surviving but fighting, burned in her chest. The winter morning after their meeting with Grace, Emma woke to a barrage of phone notifications. First, a cheerful voicemail from Heather, hope you're enjoying your new palace. Then, a terse one from Tyler, don't poke around, Emma, there's nothing good for you there. By noon, she and Miranda were ankle-deep in ruined attic insulation, uncovering boxes of family photos and expired insurance policies. Miranda, high from discovery, twisted a black-and-white photo of Emma's grandmother between her fingers. Mom, she looks like you. But tension threaded every moment. The day after their visit to Grace, they found a note taped to the farmhouse porch, private property, no trespassing, legal action pending. Whitaker Holdings. Emma relayed this to Grace, who responded with icy resolve. He knows you're close, we have to move before he gets creative. Days grew shorter as the demolition deadline loomed. Emma and Miranda split time. Miranda cataloged the jewelry, snapping photos for possible appraisers. Emma haunted county records for additional proof. On the 5th day, they found a box upstairs marked correspondence. Each letter chronicled boundary lines, proof of original ownership. The jewel was a letter from Emma's grandfather, meticulously noting property transfers and a warning, never let go of title or soul. Houses matter, but so do the people inside. As Miranda packed the last velvet pouch, Emma nearly collapsed from fatigue. "I'm running low," she admitted quietly, "if this goes wrong." Miranda pressed the green brooch into Emma's palm. "It's not money, Mom, it's ours because we earned it." Emma hugged her daughter fiercely, knowing that win or lose, this was more than salvage. The next morning they sped to Grace's office through slush, where they stumbled upon a cluster of men in suits. Tyler, Brian's cousin, confronted them inside. His voice was flat, lips drawing taut. "Emma, you have 5 minutes, we know what you're doing." Emma squared her shoulders. "Do you, Tyler, because I have the titles and the county has the photos." Tyler stepped closer, but not enough to touch. "Walk away, take the house, don't push for the rest." Emma locked eyes with him. "My family isn't a consolation prize." Miranda cut in, trembling with anger. "You took the land for a ski development." Tyler's eyes flickered. "It's not personal, Miranda. Your mother knows how business works." Emma snorted. "Fraud isn't business." Tyler's threat was thin. "Push it and we go scorched earth." Grace appeared from the hallway, legal pads stacked. "Then you'd better pack sunscreen, we're filing tomorrow." The confrontation left Emma shaking but more resolved than ever. That night, as a heavy snow fell, Emma and Miranda spread out documents and jewelry, phones pinging with new threats, anonymous but with just enough detail to scare. Miranda whispered, "I keep dreaming they burn it all down." Emma squeezed her shoulder. "This is the last time anyone hijacks what's ours." Emma's vision cleared. She set aside sour dreams. The next day, she and Grace gathered evidence for the civil suit, while Miranda kept community leaders in the loop. Neighbors, reading about historic property dispute in the local paper, nodded encouragement as Emma passed in town. Grace's plan was brisk, methodical, and Emma hoped bulletproof. "We'll drop everything at the courthouse, evidence of title fraud, proof the demolition is retaliation, jewelry as asset inventory. The press will follow." Emma stared at the courthouse steps, knees knocking, heart in her throat. Miranda squeezed her arm. "You're not on your own, that's what scared them." Emma practiced her lines in the entryway mirror. "Any final advice?" she whispered. Grace smiled, hand steady on a briefcase. "Lead with the truth, the rest will follow." By afternoon, Main Street buzzed. Press vans parked outside the courthouse. Real estate developers, Brian at the center, arms folded in his best navy suit, waited by the boardroom. Heather lingered near the door, phone glued to her ear. Emma stepped inside, Miranda at her side, determination radiating from every pore. The overhead lights were too bright. Old wood echoed. Brian looked up, eyes sharp as glass. Brian's voice was honeyed but brittle. "Emma, we're here to resolve this civilly. You've accused us of fraud." Emma set the thick folder on the table, hand steady, gaze unwavering. "I'm accusing you of forging deeds, of hiding assets, and of trying to demolish my home to cover up what you did." Tyler smirked, but there was fear there too. "Proof, Emma, or we leave." Miranda caught her mother's eye, then flipped up 3 deeds, original signatures and blueprints with legal seals dating decades back. The room stilled. Emma pointed to the document's edge. "This one, Whitaker property boundaries. It covers every acre Brian claimed as his business development." Brian's composure slipped, hands clenched, a muscle in his jaw ticking. Heather sipped her coffee, voice brittle. "Those are just old papers, sentimental, not legal." Grace entered, briefcase snapping open. "Except this signature is notarized and recorded. Emma's family never relinquished title. Here's a forensic report showing forgery on Brian's refiled copies." Brian reached for the folder, but Grace blocked him. "Copies for the judge only. You wanted civil, welcome to it." Miranda's voice, trembling but certain, rang out. "You stole from us. You forged my mother's name." Heather's veneer cracked. "We did what we had to, the business." Emma's anger rose, steady and practiced. "Funny, you're always saving yourself, destroying everyone else." Brian turned on her, face red. "Frankly, you were lucky to get anything. That farmhouse was worthless." Emma looked him square in the eye, unflinching. "Except it was, neither were we." Tyler tried to interject. "Walk away now before everyone hears." Emma snapped the folder shut. "Do you even hear yourself?" she whispered, voice low, the chandelier's glare catching tears that shone but did not fall. The county demolition officer entered, followed by a cluster of local reporters, their cameras clicking. Emma slammed the evidence on the table. "The county's here, the press is outside, and I have every receipt. You built lies with my house, not anymore." A hush pressed in. All you could hear was the snow melting off boots and the low hum of courthouse lights. Brian, cornered, spat, "You won't get away with this." Emma's reply was clean, cold. "Watch me." The county official stepped forward, eyes scanning the paperwork. "Miss Whittaker, your title's good. The demolition order's void, effective immediately. These forged deeds, well, we'll leave that to the lawyers." A swirl of chaos erupted, reporters closing in, Brian's face crimson, Tyler grabbing at paperwork, Heather turning away, mascara smudging into the expensive collar of her coat. Grace gently took Emma's arm. "It's done, let him squirm." Miranda didn't cry, she simply whispered, "Finally, we did it." Emma, exhausted, allowed herself a shaky breath. Somewhere past her anger, in the small victory of this room, she could feel the farmhouse, her farmhouse, waiting. In the weeks that followed, Brian's business collapsed under the flood of bad press and legal action. Developers stopped taking his calls. The Whittaker name lost its luster, stripped from local buildings and banquets. Heather retreated to her parents' estate, social invitations drying up as word spread. Tyler scrambled to sell assets, but the damage was irreversible. Once the fraud went public, investors pulled out, lawsuits stacked up. Grace accepted thank-you notes from townsfolk, some who remembered when Emma was just that artsy girl Brian married, now seeing her as something sharper. The farmhouse became an anchor, not just for Emma and Miranda, but for neighbors who turned up with meals, paint, and stories about its history. Miranda started a blog chronicling their repairs, and soon strangers wrote asking for advice or to share memories. Holiday dinners filled the once empty rooms, the massive fireplace blazing, laughter rolling through the halls as repair dust swirled between old floorboards and fresh-baked pies. One December night, someone from the local school brought a cherry pie and said, "This house used to be the heart of the valley, welcome back." Through faded photographs framed in the living room, through every emerald necklace gleaming under lamplight, fresh chapters grew from roots most people tried to cut down. Emma stood at the hearth, hands steady, watching Miranda and half a dozen new friends decorate the tree. She thought of Brian, what he'd lost, what he'd tried to steal, and realized the weight of her grandmother's words. Houses matter, but so do the people inside. If you've ever let yourself believe someone could declare your story over, remember this. What's written in ink can be reclaimed, but what's fought for with heart becomes unbreakable. For Emma and Miranda, home was theirs again, and this time they kept the key within reach. Near the window, the storm's final shreds rattled the glass, but inside the warmth was real, built by the work of weeks and the unfamiliar buoyancy of relief. Emma slumped into her grandmother's velvet chair, knees nudged close to the radiator. Miranda sat cross-legged at her feet, the legal folder at last zipped and shelved. Their dinners had been simple, potato soup, biscuits, applesauce from a neighbor, but to Emma it tasted finer than champagne. The repairs were steady but honest, every board nailed with stories. Emma steering a brush through peeling paint, Miranda recaulking windows, their laughter laced with exhaustion and a private sort of joy. The jewelry, appraised and insured, had become security for the future, but most of it stayed hidden, quiet as a secret in the upstairs vault. For now, what mattered was the preservation of something impossible, a grace note, a new beginning. One evening in early March, as frost still snaked across the fields, Miranda read aloud by the banked fire. Aunt May was 25 when she came here. She recited through a mouthful of bread, waving a yellowed letter, and she wrote, "The land is trouble, but I'm stubborn enough for it. Guess it runs in the blood." Emma smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "We're both stubborn, don't let anyone tell you different." From the kitchen, a gentle knock startled them. Emma's breath caught. Midnight callers were rare, fear leftover from too many bad years. But when she opened the door, it was Grace, her boots muddy, her smile folded into tired lines. "Didn't want to call ahead," Grace apologized, waving a battered file folder, "but I finished the paperwork from probate court. It's official. The county recognizes your title claim. The back taxes are wiped, the land's in your name, and, well, I thought you'd want to see." Emma hesitated, the paper crisp between her fingers. There was her own name, not just as recipient, but as heir to 4 generations who had survived wars, loss, betrayal, people who had clung to this scrap of Iowa with the same desperate tenacity that now pulsed in her veins. She reached for a cup and poured Grace some tea, hands still trembling. Grace's gaze softened as she watched Miranda. "You pulled off something rare, you made the town proud. Most people in Windsor gave up on fighting for what's real years ago." Emma shook her head, half laughing. "I almost did too, but when you've seen everything taken, your home, your peace, your future, you learn how hard you can bite down." Miranda set her tea aside, her eyes shining. "Is it over, all of it?" "Oh, it's over for them," Grace replied, lips quirking. Brian S. agreed to a settlement, public apology, full withdrawal of his development permits, all legal costs on his dime. No more demolition threats, no shell companies. He can't touch you. Emma's relief surfaced as a shuddering laugh. For months she'd imagined some last sabotage, a burnt barn, a shadow at the window, a letter in the mailbox. To have that phantom gone in the pages of a signed judgment, she folded Grace into a hug. Miranda bounced, grinning before sobering. "Do you think he's sorry?" Grace was silent a while. People like Brian, maybe they're sorry for getting caught. Maybe they're just angry they couldn't outmaneuver you. Doesn't really matter. The apology's in ink, and that's all you need. For the rest of the evening, the 3 women traded stories, childhood adventures, courtroom dramas, recipes for bread that never quite rose right. Outside, the last of the ice storm melted into dark earth. At midnight, Grace pulled her scarf tight and paused at the door. "If you need anything, Emma, this house, this family, don't wait to ask. You've got friends in Windsor now." After she was gone, Emma leaned by the fireplace while Miranda started up the stairs, yawning. "You saved us, you know," Miranda called back. Emma traced the outline of the hearthstone, hand resting on a sliver of quartz her grandmother had once pried free. "Not just me, kiddo, you stood up when it counted." She looked up, voice catching. "I thought losing everything would break me. I never thought it could give me back you." Miranda paused on the stair, her face framed by garland, shadows flickering. "We keep building, right? That's how you make a place a home, even if most days you wake up scared." Emma nodded, especially then. Days stretched and lengthened. Miranda took small jobs in town, babysitting, dog walking, a few afternoons clerking at the bookstore. Neighbors offered seeds for a garden, extra wood and paint. Sometimes, when Emma helped repaint the farmhouse eaves, people she barely recalled from her school days stopped to wave. There were casseroles, invitations to card games, a new rhythm piecing itself together. On the porch one morning, with the spring thaw softening the distant river, Emma found a letter in the mailbox. For an instant, her heart stuttered, expecting more trouble, but this one was formal, embossed with a judge's seal. She tore it open. Inside, alongside the dry legalese, was a handwritten note. "Miss Whittaker, congratulations on prevailing against unusual odds. The court commends your diligence in upholding your family's legacy. Enclosed is an excerpt from the Oral History Archives, confirming the Whitaker line's contributions to Windsor Township. With respect, Judge Marla Sims. Emma traced the margin where the judge had copied a line in slanting script. The soul of a house survives through the courage of those unafraid to claim it. She wept, but for the first time, her tears felt like relief, not grief. Spring meant more than repairs, it was the return of belonging. Emma baked bread. Miranda dug up the old kitchen garden, coaxing strawberries and squash from soil neglected for a decade. They spent an afternoon sorting the jewelry, discussing what to keep and what to lend to the local museum for a historic exhibit. Miranda insisted on wearing the smallest pearl earrings for graduation, and Emma didn't try to argue. Some heirlooms belonged in the world, she figured, not only behind locks. As the end of Miranda's school term neared, Emma drove her daughter into town for the ceremony. The auditorium was filled with families, faces alight with pride and hope. When Miranda crossed the stage, the first in 3 generations to claim both a diploma and her family's land, Emma's applause cut through everything: the ruined years, the insults, the doubts. Afterward, they posed for photos on the courthouse steps. Grace, clutching a bouquet, gave Miranda a wink. "I'd hire you both as paralegals come July." Emma grinned, arm around her daughter's waist. "We're busy enough here, thanks. That kitchen garden won't plan itself." Miranda elbowed her gently. "Maybe, but I want to study historic preservation. Do it right like you did." People drifted past, reporters, teachers, old neighbors. Brian and Heather were nowhere to be found, their names now just footnotes in town gossip, warnings to future speculators. At home that evening, after the celebration faded, Emma walked alone in the back pasture beneath a sky bruised with stars. She paused by a crumbled section of the fence, boots sinking in damp grass. For a moment she let herself imagine the past, her grandmother waving from the stoop, children laughing on the porch, a family whole before ambition tore it asunder. She pressed a thumb against the fence post, breathing deep the scent of open earth and snowmelt. A quiet, sure voice echoed inside her, "You saved it. You made it home again." Emma turned back, the yellow windows bright in the farmhouse, Miranda's laughter echoing down the hall, the rest of their lives, messy, precious, unassailable, just waiting. Inside, she hung her coat, shut the door, and picked up the old emerald brooch, laying it gently atop the mantel. It shone in the lamplight, not as currency, but as memory, evidence, promise. Miranda called down, "Mom, there's still pie," and Emma laughed, light as the wind. Outside, the farmhouse stood, a little battered, a lot mended, but it was theirs. Home, untaken, undestroyed, and finally undefeated. As night settled, Emma lingered by the kitchen window, watching Miranda and 2 friends string lanterns between the porch columns. The laughter, so effortless, so new, filled the house in a way she feared it never would again after losing everything. She pressed her palm to the cool glass, feeling the deep, quiet thrum of belonging. Miranda leaned through the doorframe, cheeks pink from the brisk spring air. "There's still half the pie left," she teased, holding up the plate, "but if you wait any longer, Andrew's going to eat all the whipped cream." Emma smiled, taking a seat at the battered table that had survived the worst years. "Andrew should know by now we defend dessert the same way we defend property lines," she joked, eyes bright. Andrew grinned, spoon halfway to his mouth. "Not risking another showdown," he replied, earning a chorus of giggles from the girls. In that moment, Grace arrived once more, dropping off a sheaf of letters from the Historical Society. "More fans for your story," she said, setting them down. Miranda flipped through one, her voice carrying. "Thank you for reminding us what family means here," she broke off, tears threatening, and blinked rapidly. "There are dozens like that, Mom." Emma reached across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. "It was never really about the house, was it?" she said softly. "It was about choosing to stay standing, even when we were outnumbered." Grace nodded, gentle pride warming her voice. You reminded Windsor that some things you have to fight for, some people you never let go. The lamplight caught the green gleam of the brooch above the mantel as Emma let her gaze travel around the kitchen, settling on Miranda, on old friends and new ones. Their voices and laughter wove together, a tapestry stronger than loss and sharper than regret. As the hour grew late, friends gathered their coats, promising to return for tomorrow's planting. The house hushed. Emma followed Miranda upstairs, pausing outside her daughter's room. "Good night, kiddo," Emma whispered. Miranda looked back, her smile tender and fierce. "Good night, Mom, we're home." Emma crossed the hall, her heart steadied by promise and legacy, and slipped into sleep, knowing at last their story was one of their own making, a story with roots too deep for any storm to tear free.